The last thing I saw through the greasy kitchen window was Commander Thorne's face just before they slammed the hood over his head. My team, my brothers in arms, were on their knees in the dirt, zip-tied and helpless. The men I served breakfast to every single morning were being dragged away like cargo. I didn't scream like the others. Instead, I felt an old, familiar ice flood my veins. A cold, quiet fury woke up inside me. Then, I calmly removed my apron and reached for the walk-in freezer. Before I tell you what I pulled from the maintenance panel behind it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. It means the world to me. Now, let me tell you exactly how it all began. For 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days, I was invisible. My world was the smell of frying bacon at 0600, the clang of metal trays at noon, and the hiss of the grill at 1800. I was the quiet woman in the mess hall at Forward Operating Base Falcon, the one with the grease-stained baseball cap pulled low over her eyes. To the elite warriors of SEAL Team 7, I was just Riley, the cook who never said much more than, "What can I get you?" This invisibility was a fortress I had built around myself, brick by painful brick. That fortress was my escape from who I used to be, Staff Sergeant Riley Adams, 75th Ranger Regiment. I had been one of them, once. I'd graduated top of my class at Ranger School, could field strip 7 different weapon systems blindfolded, and live for the adrenaline of the mission. But my last operation in Syria shattered that life forever. The high-value target, the one described in the intel brief as a ruthless warlord, turned out to be a boy. He couldn't have been older than 14. The mission was a success, earning me medals and commendations. But as I looked at the photograph afterward, something fundamental inside me broke. The military offered me promotions, a path to the highest echelons of special operations. I turned them all down and requested a non-combat role. Citing personal reasons, no one dared to question. They sent me here to FOB Falcon to trade my rifle for a spatula. For 3 years, it worked. I found a strange kind of peace in feeding people instead of fighting them. I watched over SEAL Team 7 from the safety of my kitchen. I knew their routines, their favorite meals, the way they took their coffee. I saw them off on missions and felt a quiet satisfaction when they all returned, tired but whole, for a hot meal. They were consummate professionals. They never asked about my past, and I never offered it. I was just part of the background, a reliable presence in their chaotic world. Their leader, Commander Alex Thorne, had a weathered face and eyes that had seen too much. He'd nod at me in thanks, a silent acknowledgement of my role. His second-in-command, Leo Vega, was different. His eyes were sharp, analytical. A few times, I caught him watching me, not as a cook, but as if he was trying to solve a puzzle. He saw the way I moved with tactical efficiency, always keeping my back to a wall, my eyes scanning the room, even as I served mashed potatoes. He saw a fellow warrior, but he was wise enough not to speak of it. But my routine wasn't just about cooking. Every morning at 0430, before the base stirred, I conducted my own security sweep of the mess hall. I knew every entry point, every choke point, every piece of equipment that could be turned into a weapon. And behind the humming, walk-in freezer, tucked away in a maintenance panel only I knew existed, was my emergency cache. Wrapped in waterproof plastic was a compact pistol, a balanced K-bar knife, and a small satellite tracker. It wasn't paranoia. My time as a ranger had taught me one undeniable truth. Hope is not a strategy. Violence doesn't make appointments. I prayed I'd never have to open that panel again. I prayed the woman I'd buried in the Syrian desert would stay dead. But a part of me, the part that was a survivor, always knew that prayers are not always answered. The morning of October 15th began like any other. The air was thick with the smell of coffee and the sizzle of eggs on the grill. Then came the first explosion. It wasn't a sharp crack, but a deep, resonant thump that vibrated up through the concrete floor and rattled the pans hanging on their racks. Most of the kitchen staff flinched, dismissing it as a training exercise. But my body knew better. My ears, trained by years of combat, instantly identified the sound. Incoming RPGs, plural. Before the second blast confirmed my assessment, My mind was already a whirlwind of calculations, threat vectors, blast radiuses, response times. 30 seconds later, the base alarms shrieked to life, the piercing wail of Condition Red. Through the mess hall windows, I saw the organized chaos of a base under attack. Soldiers sprinting to defensive positions, officers shouting orders. But something was terribly wrong. The explosions were too coordinated, coming from multiple directions at once. They weren't just harassing us. They were systematically taking out key infrastructure. This wasn't a random insurgent attack. This was a professional military operation. I kept cooking, my movements steady and deliberate. Panic is a contagion more dangerous than any bullet. But inside, the Ranger was awake and analyzing. The third wave of explosions was closer, more precise. I watched as our communications tower buckled and fell. Then the power grid went dark, the emergency generators kicking in with a groan. They were isolating us, cutting us off from the outside world. And that's when I saw them. Figures in dark tactical gear, moving through the smoke and confusion with the fluid grace of apex predators. They breached the perimeter in sections that were supposed to be impenetrable, using advanced cover and movement techniques that screamed special forces. And as I tracked their path, a cold dread seized my heart. They weren't heading for the command center or the armory. They were moving with chilling purpose toward one target, the barracks of SEAL Team 7. From my kitchen window, I had a perfect, horrifying view. The SEALs were trapped, caught completely off guard. The battle lasted exactly 7 minutes. I timed it by the big clock on the kitchen wall. I watched America's most elite warriors fight with legendary skill, but they were outnumbered and caught in a tactical trap. The attackers weren't using lethal rounds. I saw the telltale puffs of tranquilizer darts. They wanted prisoners. I watched Commander Thorne go down as he tried to rally his men. I saw Vega take out 2 enemies before he was overwhelmed. One by one, my boys fell. Within 10 minutes, it was over. SEAL Team 7 was being zip-tied and prepared for transport by an enemy that operated with terrifying efficiency. I stood frozen, watching as they dragged the unconscious men I'd fed just hours before into unmarked vehicles. As the trucks disappeared into the Afghan dust, the fortress I had built around myself for 3 years crumbled into dust. The peace I had so desperately sought was a lie. The woman who wanted only to cook, to nurture, to heal, she died right there, looking out that greasy window. With calm, deliberate movements, I untied my apron and tossed it onto the counter. I pulled off my baseball cap. The Ranger I thought I'd buried in Syria opened her eyes, and she was hungry for payback. The shift inside me was total. The cook's slouch was gone, replaced by the coiled posture of a predator. My first priority was intelligence. An attack this precise meant one thing. We had a traitor. Moving through the smoking chaos of a base, I was a ghost. I used the confusion as cover, my years of training guiding my steps through the wreckage. The communication center was a mess of shattered screens and severed wires, but the emergency systems were hardened. I bypassed the damaged terminals and accessed the server logs. My fingers flew across the keyboard, cross-referencing security protocols, personnel schedules, and access logs against the timeline of the assault. The data painted a sickening picture. The attack was timed to a 40-minute window during a security shift change, a moment of maximum vulnerability. The intel was too perfect, too detailed. It could only have come from the inside. It took me 20 minutes to find him. Lieutenant Colonel Evan Vance, the base's executive officer, the man responsible for our security. His name was all over the access logs for classified SEAL team schedules. A quick, encrypted search of his financial records showed a series of large, untraceable deposits. Rage, cold and sharp, tightened my jaw. Identifying the snake didn't bring my team back, but it gave my anger a target. Now I had to find them. Rescue was my mission, not revenge. Not yet. Using the base's tactical databases, I started mapping potential holding sites within a 50-kilometer radius. The enemy needed a location that was secure, isolated, and defensible. The list of possibilities narrowed quickly. An abandoned mining complex to the northwest, too exposed. A network of caves to the south, too hard to access with vehicles. That left one prime candidate, a derelict Soviet military installation 30 kilometers to the east, codenamed Dynamo. It had the infrastructure, the isolation, and the defensible perimeter. I knew that's where they were. The next decision was the hardest. Military protocol dictated I report my findings and wait for a rescue operation. But I knew how long that would take. Days. Days to get approval, assemble a team, plan the mission. Intel suggested the SEALs would be moved to a more permanent, black site location within 24 hours. If I waited, they would be gone forever. These men, Thorne, Vega, all of them, they'd spent their lives pulling people out of impossible situations. They deserved the same. I also had advantages a conventional team wouldn't. I knew these men. I knew how they thought, how they'd react under stress. My years of quiet observation in the mess hall had given me a unique psychological profile of each operator. It was a tactical edge I had to use. The decision was made. This would be a solo mission. I spent the next 2 hours gearing up. I retrieved my hidden cache from behind the freezer, the cold steel of the pistol a familiar weight in my hand. I supplemented my kit with supplies I could acquire from the base without raising alarms. Extra ammo, medical supplies, breaching charges. My loadout was light, built for speed and stealth. As I slipped out of FOB Falcon and into the harsh, moonlit terrain of the Afghan mountains, I wasn't Riley the cook anymore. I was Staff Sergeant Adams, and I was going hunting. The 6-hour journey to the Dynamo facility was a brutal test of endurance and stealth. I moved through the treacherous mountain terrain like a phantom, every step deliberate, every shadow an ally. My ranger training took over, my body remembering the rhythm of moving undetected through enemy territory. By the time I reached a vantage point overlooking the Soviet installation, the first hints of dawn were painting the eastern sky. The facility was larger than the intel suggested, a sprawling complex of concrete buildings surrounded by crumbling guard towers. I spent an hour conducting reconnaissance, my binoculars scanning every inch of the compound. I counted over 30 hostiles, all well-armed and displaying professional military discipline. But I spotted their critical error. Their security was oriented inward. They were watching for prisoners trying to get out, not for a hunter trying to get in. At 0300, when human alertness is at its lowest, I began my infiltration. I moved with silent, deadly precision, neutralizing the perimeter sentries one by one. I used non-lethal takedowns whenever possible. This was a rescue, not a massacre. The central building, a reinforced communications bunker, was my target. Bypassing its security was a challenge, but my specialized training in classified operations served me well. I defeated the electronic locks, disabled the motion sensors, and slipped through their defenses like a whisper. Inside, I found them. All 12 members of SEAL Team 7 were in a large, damp room, conscious and zip-tied, but thankfully unharmed. Commander Thorne's head snapped up as I appeared in the doorway, a shadow detaching itself from the darkness. His expression shifted in a matter of seconds, from confusion to disbelief, then to a flicker of dawning recognition, and finally, to pure professional respect. "Riley," he whispered, his voice a hoarse rasp. "Staff Sergeant Riley Adams, 75th Ranger Regiment," I said quietly, already moving to cut his restraints with my K-bar. "I'm here to take you home." The moment the SEALs were free, the entire dynamic of the mission changed. What began as a solo rescue operation instantly transformed into a coordinated counterassault by 13 of America's most elite warriors. Armed with weapons taken from the guards, we moved through the facility not as escapees, but as hunters. The enemy force, expecting to guard helpless prisoners, found themselves in a full-scale battle against a team of vengeful ghosts. The fight for the Dynamo facility lasted 45 minutes. It was a symphony of controlled violence, a testament to the combined skills of the men I had come to save and the ranger they never knew they had. Back at FOB Falcon, as the sun rose on a secure base, Commander Thorne approached me. "I need to know," he said, his voice low and steady. "Who exactly have I been having cooked my breakfast for the past 3 years?" I looked at him, The dust and grime of the battle caked on my face, and felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Someone who wanted to feed people instead of fighting them, I replied. Someone who discovered that sometimes you don't get to choose which role you play when your people need you. The debriefing led to offers for immediate reinstatement to any special operations unit I wanted. I declined them all. In a private conversation with Thorn, I explained, I'm not ready to be a full-time warrior again, but I'm also not going to pretend I'm just a cook. A solution emerged from a new, classified program. 6 months later, I was still a food service supervisor, but with a covert mission to provide security and crisis response for high-value personnel. I was a guardian hidden in plain sight. I found my purpose in the balance between my two identities. I was the cook who made sure our nation's warriors were well fed, and the guardian who watched over them with skills that could turn a kitchen knife into a weapon. I was invisible again, but this time, it wasn't a retreat from who I was. It was a deployment of all that I had become. The warrior and the nurturer had finally found a way to coexist, serving the same mission, to protect the protectors. Have you ever felt like you had to hide a part of yourself to fit in or find peace? What would you have done if you were in my shoes, watching your friends get taken? Do you think true strength is about the battles we fight openly or the ones we prepare for in silence, hoping they never come? I often wonder if we all have a hidden warrior inside us, just waiting for the right moment to emerge. If my story moved you or made you think, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories like this. Share this with someone who you know would do anything to protect their own people. Your support means everything, and I truly read every single comment you leave. It helps me know I'm not alone in these experiences. More incredible true stories from my life are waiting on your screen. Watch those next, and I'll see you in the next video with another story that changed everything for me. Stay safe out there, and look out for one another.